we've got street food traders and chefs who are from all walks of backgrounds. We have people who have been on MasterChef. We've got people who come from Michelin star backgrounds. We have people who come from factory workshops. It's people. The thing about street food is, compared to potentially like a normal run-of-the-mill restaurant or kitchen, is the fact that you've got people who are almost like hobbyists or are very good at a particular thing, and they want to showcase that. And that's where we come in. We do a little bit of theatre. So it's the multiculturalism that we have in this country, where we're starting to celebrate some of the great food that we have that are coming out of all walks of life in the whole of the UK.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Your Tagline Here with me, Simon Tomlinson. In this episode, I speak to Jack Brabant, who is the co-founder of the street food business called the Digbeth Dining Club, which started back in 2012 and has grown to be a massive events business with several venues all over the Midlands. I find out how he set it up as a business and grew it into what it is today, how he coped with being forced to close during the COVID lockdowns, and also how he started a new venture recently called the Digbeth Dining Club CIC, which helps provide free food to people in need. Before we get into the episode, I would just like to mention our sponsor, KitLab, which is a digital marketing company based in Birmingham in the UK. KitLab have over 15 years experience and specialise in branding, websites, digital marketing, social media and more. So if you want to grow your business online, just head over to kitlab.com, which is KIKLAB.com. Without further ado, let's get started with the episode. If you do like it, then please make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Hello, Jack. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks. I'm looking forward to finding out more about the Digbeth Dining Club and what it's all about and how you started it and grew it into what it is. So first of all, can you just explain to people who will be watching who might not know what it is the Digbeth Dining Club?
So Digbeth Dining Club fundamentally is a street food and cultural sort of event now as it's gone forward over the last few years. But it started off in its infancy as just a celebration of the start of street food. Back in the late 2000s, during the last crash, street food was one of the sort of reactions to the great crash that we had, and it was born from there. And I was going around for years, going to filming street food events, going to different events, everything like that. And there was nothing like that in the city. And 2012 was when we decided to actually try and put it together. And it's gone from there really over the last almost decade now.
Yeah, and I've been to it on several occasions, and I know how such a great venue it is and such a great event with all of the different street food things that are there. So with the Digbeth Dining Club, once you had the idea that you wanted to do it, how did you actually go about making that happen?
It was a lot of drunken ideas. There's no lie about that, really. We had some between me and my friend. We had some contacts within the sort of the nightclub industry within Digbeth, and we were looking for round places, and Digbeth felt like the right place to do it. The whole point of like sort of what we try and do is we want that stripped back industrial feel. And Digbeth probably was very similar to what Shoreditch used to be like and what the Northern Quarter in Manchester used to be like, which are two places I spent a lot of time with through university and work, and we wanted that. And luckily I met my business partner James. He was setting up Spotlight at the time, and went from there really. And he took a punt, and we took a punt together really. And it was an old taxi repair warehouse that we did it out of with two street food traders, and it was very wet all the time, but it seemed to work, and it's gone from there really. It's just we've always tried to sort of replicate what we do and change things as well, but that's really where the ideas came from.
Yeah, and I remember when I went there for the first time, I think it was just like a Friday night thing, and maybe was it once a month to start with, or was it every Friday?
We made decisions go every week.
Okay.
I know in those early days we were always paying our friends to come because it was just like, trying to persuade people to come down to
Yeah.
to Digbeth when it wasn't nightclubs was for a culinary experience was hard work. But we just started every Friday and persevered with it really. But then we moved on from that to Friday, Saturdays, Sundays, Thursdays, and across the Midlands as well.
Yeah. So now it's not just the Digbeth Dining Club, which is located in Digbeth. There's other locations as well, aren't there? Can you just tell us what those other places are?
Well, we've left our venue in Digbeth.
Oh, right.
We left there last year. So
sorry.
So at the back of the pandemic, it was we took the decision that because of how busy it became, we wanted a new home. So we're in the process of opening a new place in Digbeth. But we operate. We now have a permanent. We have several permanent venues. We have a permanent venue in Hockley, which is the Hockley Social Club.
Yep.
We're due to open our new venue, Herbert's Yard, in Longbridge, which we've been operating a market-style event and community event in Longbridge for 6 years. So we're excited to open that up as well, which will be our first one outside the city centre. And then later this year, we'll be opening our new venue in Digbeth, which we're looking forward to properly announcing very soon.
And is that a secret venue? I assume that you can't tell us.
It will be in Digbeth. That's as much as we're willing to say.
One of the things that I like, and I think that the Digbeth Dining Club is probably one of the things that has really helped to spark this off. Is I remember when I first went to Digbeth and I went to Code nightclub, which is opposite where your old venue was. And in those days, it was just it was a very industrial area, which it still is now, but it was more for nightclubs. And now, since the Digbeth Dining Club and the success of that, there's lots of other similar type places where it's not just about clubbing. Do you think that the Digbeth Dining Club was instrumental in helping to make that happen?
I think we just made the place accessible.
Okay.
I certainly know when we first started there, it was it's certainly different to where it is now. We had to persuade people to come down to that place. Our whole point about Digbeth Dining Club is the fact that we are accessible to every demographic. We're not for a certain age group. We're not for a certain, ethnicity or anything like that, or sexuality. It doesn't really matter. We want it to be accessible for everyone. And I think, like you see that in Digbeth now is that, it feels like a safe space. Safer. I wouldn't say it's completely safe, but it's a safer space for people to spend their nights there. And we're doing the same in Hockley. We work with council and the police and everything like that. And, Hockley is another place that we're on the other side of the city that we're excited to get into and make it accessible as well. And we're seeing that already.
And I think that's a great thing to help to regenerate some of these areas which might be a little bit run down to get people going to those places and to get people to feel safer in those places. And I saw that you've been doing stuff in Coventry Cathedral as well.
So we operate in several different spaces across Coventry. Okay. For example, this bank holiday that we're just coming up now, we're in Coventry Cathedral for the whole weekend. But we've done stuff across the whole city. We operate in many different cities. Wolverhampton, I think, like the Midlands, and it's one of the things that we really do champion is the fact that the Midlands has probably been underrepresented or even become a little bit of a running joke for the rest of the country, or rest of the UK rather. And we really try and show that actually we're the best at what we do. We've got a thriving culinary scene in the Midlands, and the street food scene is just one element of it. Look at Birmingham; it has several Michelin-star restaurants. I know it goes up and down, and I can't remember exactly how many there are now, but everything in between that is what we do, and we've always prided ourselves on having some of the best street food traders in the whole of the UK, and that's been represented with all the awards they've won.
So talking about street food vendors, can you just explain to the people watching and listening at home, what sort of street food traders do you have coming to your events? What could they expect if they come along?
Basically, name a country and we have it. So that's about it. We celebrate, we do everything and in between. I think we over the years, we've moved it away from being like a greasy sort of like attitude. I'm sure that over the years you went to New Street and you'd see like a horrible hot dog and like a jack potato, which is it's all has its place in the world. There's no criticising that at all. But we've got street food traders and chefs who are from all walks of backgrounds. We have people who have been on MasterChef. We've got people who come from Michelin star backgrounds. We have people who come from factory workshops. It's people. The thing about street food is, compared to potentially like a normal run-of-the-mill restaurant or kitchen, is the fact that you've got people who are almost like hobbyists, or are very good at a particular thing, and they want to showcase that. And that's where we come in. We do a little bit of theatre. So that's where street food is really. And I think you see that across the world. We've never really celebrated it in the UK as much as you do around the rest of the world. We talk about what happens in places like Marrakesh, where you can go to some of the markets over there, places in East Asia and in India with the hawker markets. It goes across the world. I think maybe it's the weather, in which we've been completely punished for by this summer. But I think it's the multiculturalism that we have in this country, where we're starting to celebrate some of the great food that we have that are coming out of all walks of life in the whole of the UK.
Yeah, and it really has taken street food to that more culinary experience. So it's not like you're just pulling over to a burger van on a lay-by on a motorway or a dual carriageway. This is like properly really, really well-made food, and delicious food that people are taking a lot of time and care and attention to. So it's like getting restaurant quality food, but getting it from a street vendor, and in an enjoyable experience with music and drinks.
Well, that's certainly, when I first got into it, it was like an awakening for me. It was like when I first went to some of the stuff that I was seeing in London back in the late 2000s, you were seeing these fantastic culinary experts, for me, doing some amazing stuff in random locations. I've already talked about the fact that, we do stuff out of industrial warehouses. I mean, there's something quite alluring about that. And I think, that's what we've tried to achieve as a company. And you can see in the popularity that I think there's people like that stripped back thing. And I think it's a Brummie I think it's a Brummie thing as well, or maybe a Midlands thing. And we don't like to have all shouting and singing sort of stuff. We like to celebrate our stripped back sort of like industrial side of it. Certainly how I feel. I love nothing more than trying to rejuvenate a warehouse space.
Well, yeah, and that's a really important part of the Birmingham history, is that that industrial history that we have. So I think celebrating that is a great thing. And I live in the jewellery quarter, and I love living in that area because of the history and the culture that is part of the buildings and the architecture and everything that's around. So something that we do on this podcast is we try to help educate people who might be watching, to help them learn from your own experience with developing this business over the last 10 years. So what would you say were the biggest challenges and the biggest learning points that you've had and you've come across?
I think Birmingham, for a city that's celebrated by the car, we still live and die by the car sort of mentality. We have a terrible transport system in the city.
Okay.
And I think getting people out of the suburban lifestyle has been proven difficult. We really put an effort, and it's shown that we've managed to get people out of their houses. But I think if you go to places like London, you're willing to jump on a tube and travel for an hour to go off to something. I lived in Manchester, we did the same, and I think you see that in major cities. Whereas I think showcasing stuff and getting people to get off the seats and come and see stuff was one of the hardest things that we found. And I certainly think since the pandemic hit, you're seeing more of a move towards suburban lifestyles. I mean, look at what's happening in places like Sturchley. It's fantastic. You've got such a great stuff coming through the works, and it's work also happening across the rest of the city as well. I think there was a lot of stigma as well about street food to begin with. I certainly know that when we first started, I had to explaining what street food was. Got a lot of puzzled faces, and now you can't move for it. It's part of the mainstream. You go into a supermarket, you can get your street food, herbs and spices, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Your street food, like every restaurant or pub is running a street food menu. It's become part of the mainstream, language now. And we still try to maintain that, almost like that sort of like core mentality of what we want to achieve, and not trying to go too mainstream as best as possible, but also trying to remain relevant to what's happening within the city.
If there's anyone who is thinking about starting up their own street food service, so maybe buying themselves a van, kitting it out, and actually making and selling food, is there any advice that you would give to people like that?
One of the biggest mistakes that I feel people make is they look at, the success of some of the street food traders that work with us. I'm going to talk about this locally in that sense. Is we've managed to create a busy sort of events and venues over the years, but it took a long time to get to that stage. And it wasn't until 3-4 years into it that we started to see large numbers coming to what we do. And I think one of the mistakes that people make is they want to get into street food is they look at what's popular and they copy it, but it's still much a cottage industry within the events industry, and there isn't as many spaces to fill as people think. And one of the things that we've always tried to do as a business is have this family sort of like mentality to the people that work with us. It's, we all work together to make a great event, and we don't just take people off. We don't just take people off the street that just say, "Oh, I can do the burger." Well, it's like, well, is your burger any good? Do we like you? Do we like you? Do we? Are you? Do you tick all of our boxes basically? So and that's something that we've always maintained, and it's one of the reasons that if you see over the last decade or so, we've actually managed to keep a large number of the same traders over the last 10 years, because it's a family environment. It's like we're all wanting to have a good time really, and I think people look at the dollar signs, but actually there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think people don't realise the amount of hours that go into it. They come on at if you said you came on a Friday night to Digbeth Dining Club, you go, "Oh God, this is busy. Look how much, look how well they're doing." Well, they haven't seen the 6 days of prep. They're not, one of the biggest issues we've had, and I've already mentioned that, is, we've had the majority of our events cancelled this summer because of the weather. We've had to cancel so much because the weather's been so bad, and coming out of a pandemic has been terrible.
Gosh, yeah. Like, I was going to ask you about the pandemic. I didn't think about the weather as well, but yeah, being an events business which largely operates outside, I know that some of your venues are inside as well, but being outside must make it very unpredictable, especially in this country with the weather.
It's part and parcel of what we do. It is. But I'm not going to lie, this summer has been one of the worst we've ever had. So it's not been good coming out of a pandemic, that's for sure.
And just talking about the pandemic, obviously you're in the events business and you're in the catering business, which are two of the industries that have been hit the hardest by the pandemic. So how have you managed to survive during that period, and what have you had to do to keep going?
I think one of the benefits of working within the industry that we work in the subsector of, say, the hospitality industry, is that we're used to being flexible, and we're used to thinking on our feet. I think sometimes when you're in a static sort of place like a restaurant, it's very difficult to maneuver. We managed to create loads of stuff. I mean, the beginning of the pandemic, we created a click and collect service and brought together all of our food traders into our big warehouse down in Hockley in the Joy Quarter, and built our own system. And that was really successful. We brought along a lot of our friends who were independent businesses. For example, just thinking if you're in the Joy Quarter, Pineapple Club, there's Couch and Sturchley, Eat Vietnam, these are all friends of ours. So they weren't able to operate because of the size of their venues. So we created almost like a hipster supermarket. So that went very well. And then we have a relationship with the Merlin Group for Warwick Castle, which is, we've done a lot there for the last 2 years. And basically we approached them and said, well, when restrictions were loosened, we said, oh, well, what about turning it into a massive beer garden? Into Britain's most beautiful beer garden. And we've done that now for 2 years in a row, and it's been really successful again. And all these various little things, we were able to sort of create stuff within a few days and got us through. And the next thing was, obviously we've now opened and built Hockley Social Club, and that's now in the process. That's a more refined version of what we've been doing over the years, and it's slowly getting there. It's just like, I wouldn't. I think like with everyone in the events and hospitality business, is that it's still tough. There's no denying it.
Yeah.
We were the last ones to be open. There's the staff shortages. I think there's a lot of restrictions put on people, and actually I'd say that actually coming out of some of the things, it's actually been worse than it was through lockdown.
Really?
And
Wow.
that is UK wide, and I don't think people realise
Yeah.
like the pressure that's been put under from the government.
Yeah, it must be really tough during the lockdowns, and I didn't realise that it would still continue to be. I mean, yeah, it does make sense, but if you're not necessarily working in it, then you don't really think about it. So, if anyone's watching and they want a good night out, then get yourself down to one of the Digbeth Dining Club venues. So, what venues are open at the moment?
So at the moment, we've got a Hockey Social Club, a venue open.
Okay.
We're operating across the Midlands. I mean, we operate in several different spaces. I mean, we've been operating, our last weekend in Warwick Castle is this weekend, so we've been operating there since April.
Okay.
As well as Coventry. We've got a few things coming up in Coventry, and we also operate in places like Bromsgrove, Wolverhampton. Lots of places around the Midlands. I think, one of the things we've realised, and we were one of the first exponents of doing it, is we really wanted to. We had so many people contacting us saying they wanted this Digbeth Dining Club experience, which was lovely, but they couldn't travel into Birmingham, so we decided to take it on the road about 6-7 years ago.
Nice.
No, about 7-8 years ago actually, and it went from there really. And then we had some success in little places, and it was like, well, we could keep on doing this. And that's how it's really operated. So now we're in the point, we do festivals, we do all kinds of things. So that's been fun, getting back on the road and just seeing people having a good time again. And I think we've all deserve a good time.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I've noticed since I've been watching the news, because I haven't actually been out to any nightclubs since things have reopened, although I haven't been out to any nightclubs for many years. So the pandemic didn't really make much difference in that respect. But it's nice seeing people going out and enjoying themselves and being able to do all of those things, and going along to restaurants and going along to venues like yours. What I want to ask you about now is the Digbeth Dining Club CIC, which I understand that you have launched quite recently. Can you tell us what that is all about?
Well, the CIC was born out of I think, last October. To be honest, we saw. I don't think there's many people who wouldn't be moved by what was happening last year, where you see free school meals and kids not being fed in half term. And I think as a nation, as an island, this has been the time to actually get behind things. And I think it was the Marcus Rashford thing that really inspired us. And I saw his message, and I think I saw a few things going on, and I put out a drunken message, all these things happen. So on Facebook, saying, we've got the resources, let's make a difference, and got inundated. Things very quickly spiraled. And
was that drunken text to Marcus Rashford?
No, it was just a Facebook message,
criticising
the lack of support for support in the half term, and it quickly transpired. We got behind some programs across Birmingham and Coventry. We raised over £30,000 in about 4 days.
Wow!
And used all of our traders, people like Gymshark. All these people got involved. Function Fit Food, who are based around the corner from here, and we started shipping out food on a daily basis across things, and with all the money we raised, we carried on till January, delivering weekly food to families in Northfield, which is one of the most socioeconomic deprived areas. And with us having a relationship in Longbridge, it felt like one of the most appropriate things to do. And we wanted to take that further, and with all the support that we had, and made the decision to set up a CIC. And so far this summer, we've been involved with Bring It On Brum, which is a programme which has been brought together by Marcus Rashford. And I think we've been doing about 20,000 meals a week across the whole city, delivering food across the city, creating cooking videos that kids can log on to and follow the recipes from our street food traders. We've also got a lot more in the pipeline. I certainly went down a rabbit hole in terms of like, I think the thing about Birmingham is, again, this goes back to it being an industrial city, and, it's got so many layers to it. You can see people having, in the city centre, you've got some fantastic buildings going up, and there's a lot of wealth that is coming in the city, but there is actually so much, there's so much poverty in this city, and like the one of the worst things we can do is actually not try and support everyone that we can do. And I've certainly realised as I got older that I'm lucky that I've got a voice, I've got the resources, and we've got support networks that can make a difference. And I feel like after 10 years of what we've been doing at Digbeth Dining Club, we can still be a commercially successful business, but we can also use our resources to give back. And that's what we're really trying to achieve. And it's something that I'm really passionate about now. And, we've got a fantastic team that's doing a lot. And, I really feel like we're starting to make a difference. And if it's a bit like the Jamie Oliver thing about 12 years ago, where it said no turkey twizzlers, because we're not just giving street food. I think like there is an element of like it's like day burgers and like fried chicken, stuff like that. But we're doing we've put part of the remit of what we're trying to achieve is making sure that we do healthy meals, and using the experience of street food traders. And the other thing as well is that what we're also trying to achieve is, because the street food traders were the ones that were left behind during the pandemic. Like they were many of the ones that weren't actually given any resources or financial support in hospitality. Most of the financial support went to restaurants or bricks and mortar. So we're also trying to create work, because if there are areas where kids are deprived of meals, or there are people that need support, well, we've got people within the region who live in those local areas who can give support. So it's a double-edged sword, really. So that's what we're really trying to achieve.
Well, I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing, helping so many people in the local area who are finding it difficult to just put food on their table. And the fact that you've got those resources that you can help to deploy that, I think is a fantastic thing. So well done for you for getting it started, and for doing all of the good things that you've been doing, especially considering that you've been finding things tough yourself to keep your business going. So to do this through the pandemic is even more impressive.
Thank you.
If people want to support that in any way, either by giving up their time or supporting it financially, is that something that they're able to do?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is check out our website, digbethdiningclub.com. We have a section that's dedicated to the CIC. There's going to be a lot of developments over the next few months. We've got some fantastic partners within the city that are really getting behind this. This goes back to what a city we are, really. I think fundamentally we all support each other, and we've seen that firsthand with what we've done. And we're looking to spread this across the Midlands. But again, if anyone's going to get involved, all they have to do is go on our website and check it out.
Awesome. Okay. So with the Digbeth Dining Club now, what are your plans for the future? Where do you see it going?
Well, as I say, I've already mentioned about the fact that we've opened up Hockley Social Club, and we're in the process of opening up Herbert's Yard. We will be opening a new venue in Digbeth, which is, we're planning is once we can actually talk about it, it'll be really exciting. And hopefully we'll put a marker, not just in the UK, but across Europe. And we also have a few festivals planned. So it's like, we're doing that, and the CIC has become a big part of that. So it's, we're quietly confident about the next decade. We've certainly grown as people. I mean, we've gone from being people who the whole thing about street food is the majority of people are people who've been born out of like in a party and a rave, and it's old DJs, it's old ravers, and that's still part of the charm. But we're all a little bit older, and we're sort of like we want to have a bit more fun, but as we get older.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can definitely see that happen, and that's one of the things that I'm attracted to it by, because it still has that vibe, but it's not quite as hardcore as going like proper clubbing that we were doing when we were in our 20s.
I like to be in bed by 11 o'clock nowadays. I can't get past 11 o'clock. So
Okay, so I've got one more question for you, which is, what is your tagline for this episode to summarise your story with the Digbeth Dining Club?
Digbeth Dining Club is the place where it's where you come to eat.
Nice. And it is a great place to go to eat. So if anyone's watching, go to the Digbeth Dining Club website. I will leave the links and everything in the description, so you can go onto the website, you can find out more about it, you can find out where the locations are and all of the opening hours, and get yourself down there, because it's a great atmosphere, it's a great event, and there's loads of great food as well. So thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, Jack. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Jack from the Digbeth Dining Club. We'll see you on another episode next week, and to make sure you don't miss out on all of the future content, just make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.